Okay, we're going to look at square roots now. And what is a square root? Okay, square root, the square root of a number. Well, that's the symbol for the square root just there. Square root of a number is the positive number. It's got to be positive, which when multiplied by itself gives that number. Now, that won't make a whole lot of sense to you until you do some questions. So let's have a look. Square root of 64. Now, how do we work that out? It means we need to find a number which multiplied by itself is equal to 64. Okay. Now, 8 times 8 is equal to 64. So we say the square root of 64 is 8. Since 8 times 8 is equal to 64. Okay. Now, let's look to the next one. Question 2. We've got to find the number which when you multiply it by itself gives you 25. All right. So 5 times 5 is equal to 25. So the square root of 25 is equal to 5. Since 5 times 5 equals 25. Let's do question 3. Now, what's the square root of 4? Well, we've got to find a number which when multiplied by itself gives me 4. That's what this means. It means find a number which when multiplied by itself gives me 4. Well, 2 times 2 is equal to 4. So we say the square root of 4 is equal to 2. All right, let's look at the next one. Think of a number which when multiplied by itself gives me 9, because that's the square root of 9. So we know that 3 times 3 is equal to 9, so square root of 9 is equal to 3. Okay, now square root of 16 means find the number which when multiplied by itself gives me 16. Well, 4 times 4 is equal to 16, which means the square root of 16 is equal to 4. Now, for the last one, the square root of 100. Well, that means find the number which when multiplied by itself gives you 100. Well, 10 times 10 is equal to 100, so the square root of 100 is equal to 10. So 10 is the number which when multiplied by itself gives you 100. So that's what the square root means. Okay? Now, let's do question 7. What's the square root of 1? Well, you've got to find the number which when multiplied by itself gives 1. 1 times 1 is equal to 1, so the square root of 1 is equal to 1. Next, question 8. Find the square root of 36. That means find the number which when multiplied by itself gives you 36. Well, 6 times 6 is equal to 36, so the square root of 36 is 6. Now, the last one is a trick question, so I'm going to warn you about that one. Right. Is there a number which when multiplied by itself gives you negative 4? And the answer is no. So I'm going to put down no answer. All right. You could try 2 times 2, but that's obviously not negative 4. You could try negative 2 times negative 2, because it's got to be the same number that you're multiplying. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. So in fact, no number works. There is no number that when multiplied by itself gives negative 4. Okay, so you can't find the square root of a negative number. So we're going to write that down. You can't find the square root of a negative number. Okay, can't do it. By the way, we should mention that what's the square root of 0? Well, the square root of 0 will be 0. Okay, since 0 times 0 is equal to 0. Okay. All right, so the square roots. Now let's move on to something called cube roots. Now, cube roots, they look like a square root symbol. There's a square root symbol. The difference is you've got a little 3 in there. There's got to be a little. Do not do this for the cube root symbol. That's not cube root. That's 3 times the square root. So that's not right. The little 3 has to sit inside the tick mark there, and it's small. You can see how small that is, right? And the cube root of a number is the number which, when multiplied by itself 3 times, gives that number. So let's have a look. Now this here, that is the cube root of 8. That's what this means. Now it means what number multiplied by itself 3 times is equal to 8, right? See that 3 there? It means find the number multiplied by itself 3 times to give you 8. Now, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8, so the cube root of 8 is 2. Okay? Now, cube root of 27 says what number multiplied by itself is equal to, multiplied by itself 3 times is equal to 27. Well, 3 times 3 times 3 is 27, so the cube root of 27 is equal to 3. Now what about the cube root of 1? We need to find a number which, when multiplied by itself 3 times, right, that's what that 3 is there for, okay, to tell you to multiply a number 3 times, to give you 1. Well, 1 times 1 times 1 equals 1, so the cube root of 1 is 1. Now what about the next one? Cube root of 64. What number multiplied by itself 3 times is equal to 64? Okay, well, it works out that 4 is. 4 times 4 is 16, times 4 is 64. You might need your calculator to work out some of these. So the cube root of 64 is 4. Now, what about the cube root of 1,000? Well, you need a number which multiplied by itself 3 times is 1,000. Now, you just through trial and error, you can work out that 10 times 10 times 10 is equal to 1,000, which is, so the cube root of 1,000 is 10. Now, what about the last one, cube root of negative 8? Now, I will give you a warning here. You can't find the square root of a negative number, but you can find the cube root of a negative number. In this case, negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 is negative 8, isn't it? Because negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. So the cube root of negative 8 is negative 2. So you can find the cube root of a negative number. Can't find the square root, but you can find the cube root, negative number. Now, one thing I should point out, all our answers were whole numbers. That will not always be the case. I just picked numbers which gave you whole numbers as the answer. So later on in the topic, we're going to look at cube roots which have answers which are not whole numbers. All right. Same with the square roots. If you look at the square roots, all the answers are whole numbers. That will not always be the case. And we're going to look at examples where that is not the case later in the topic. Now, just to finish off here, a bit of a language thing here. The way that you read this, that says square root of 64. That's how you say it, the square root of 64. And that's it for today.